All right, my name is Amy McCaffrey, and today I'm going to be doing my final video for our class, Social Science Seminar, A Mathematician's Apology, Scientists on Science. So in today's presentation, I'm going to be talking about my impressions on the course and what I liked about it and any improvements I have to offer for it. I'm also going to be giving a brief overview of the major work/concepts we discussed and what I personally got out of it. And then lastly, I'll talk about what I'm going to carry with me as a scientist in the future from this class. So first, my impressions on the course. I actually really liked this course. I really thought that we talked about a lot of interesting things, and I got to learn a lot about scientists that I didn't really know much of about before this class. And I think as a student that is going into science and is currently a science major, it is really important for me to have contextual background about the scientists that make up the fields that we work in today. And it's really important. And, I will admit I was definitely nervous at first for this course because of the title of it, A Mathematician's Apology. Before starting this class, I didn't know that that was a name of a text. So I was a little nervous that this class was going to be very technical heavy on math, but it's not. It's more idea heavy, which I think is really good for everyone. And I think it's important because I think scientists can often lose touch of the philosophical side of things that we do and can get sort of lost in the very technical side of it. I think as students too, the majority of us that are in this class are all science majors, and the majority of our classes have to do with hard science courses. So, being able to take a class where we're more just sort of talking about the ideas of scientists and, having some really important discussions about it is really helpful. And I found, you know, all of the texts that we read to be inspirational, but especially Francis Su, who I'll talk about a little bit more in this presentation. I found his work to be very inspirational. And, I think it's very important, like all of us honors college students took modern condition last year, which was also a seminar style course where we would read really important texts from influential scientists, philosophers, figures in our past. And I kind of liked this class a little bit more because I felt like we did the same thing, but we were specifically talking about scientists. So it was just more enjoyable for me personally. And then for improvements, I think that, we definitely read a good amount of text. Obviously, there are time limitations at hand, but I would have liked to have actually read more text. I felt like the last two presentations that we did, took up a little bit too much time in the course, only because the presentations were supposed to be 5 minutes per person, but I think everyone went a little bit over that. So we used several classes for one presentation, and this, obviously we only meet once a week, so that takes up more than a month of our time together. So I think in the future, either cutting down on the amount of time students are allowed to present, or maybe cutting down on class time presentations, like instead having everyone do a presentation and then uploading it onto like a Moodle forum, and then we all watched on our own times. I think that would be a little bit better, just because I felt like it's been a while since we as a class have read a text and discussed it. So I think that could improve the course. And then in addition to that, if we're able to read more texts, we can talk about more topics. So, I would have loved to see more topics on like current events going on, such as the pandemic. I feel like that's a really, really big thing that's going on that intertwines a lot with science and like art and literature. I would have liked to have read something more about religion. A lot of us did touch on it in our presentations last class, but I feel like it would have been interesting to read a little bit more about that, because I feel like the main concepts and ideas that we were mainly concerned with was like teaching and sort of the political aspect when we were talking about Einstein and Pauling. So I feel like just those couple of things would improve the course. But I think overall, like the design of the course is really good. I think it's important for us as students to be able to have open conversations and discussions about these really big ideas in the scientific community. And I think it helps us all be better students and better scientists in the future. So just to give a very brief overview of the major scientists that we discussed, we started with G.H. Hardy, who wrote A Mathematician's Apology. And in this, he basically gives his defense for the pursuit of pure mathematics. This paper was probably the most close to a technical paper that we have read, but the paper itself was not technical. It was really just him affirming his career, affirming his work. And, he was actually being pretty humorous in it. He kind of makes little jokes and digs at other scientists, and he's a little bit sarcastic at times. And it was definitely a good read. And I think as a class, we had a very good conversation about it, a conversation about like sort of the different fields of math, applied versus pure, and sort of our opinions about it. The next scientist that we read was from Polya. We read his paper on how to solve it. And I really love this one. I feel like it was a very logical paper that we read. It gave his 4-step plan, which is 1, understanding the problem, 2, devising a plan, 3, carrying out that plan, 4, looking back to check and interpret the work. And I feel like as science students and just even people as general, it's very easy to often get stuck on a very difficult problem or assignment or situation. And it's important that we learn how to think straight and be logical about our work. So I felt like this text was very interesting for us to read. It teaches us how to think straight, and it's similar to the scientific method. It's something that can apply to more of a broad genre of work. And the next scientist, which is my favorite from this class, was Francis Su. We read and listened to his Grace in Teaching and Mathematics for Human Flourishing. And, basically his major points were why it's important for a teacher / a professor to really value the student for more than their grades and to understand their worth as a person. To know not to quit. Don't let others tell you to quit and to persevere. And a quote from him, "Your accomplishments are not what make you worthy a human being. Everyone deserves grace." And I think this is really inspirational and really important because I myself struggle to remember this. I'm sure a lot of other students in class struggle to remember this. I'm a pre-medical student, which is a very competitive field, and we can very easily get caught up in the competition and basing our personal worth off of our grades, our achievements, how well we're doing in school. And it's really important to remember that, failure is inevitable. It's going to happen, and to not let that bring us down. And most importantly, to not let the opinions of others, regardless of who they are, bring you down. To remember that your opinion of yourself is the one that matters the most. And regardless of what you do, you are worthy of being appreciated and valued. And then the next couple of scientists we talk about were Einstein and Pauling. We read their works about how they were against warfare and how they were speaking out about it, and they were doing it for the good of humanity. And they were both very vocal about their beliefs as scientists in other fields. And this sort of introduced the discussion into our class about what is a scientist's place in the public eye, such as politics. And as a class, we concluded that yes, scientists should be able to speak out about their opinions into the public, almost as if it is their duty to do so, because as scientists, we have information that other people in the general society don't really have. So it's kind of our job to be able to speak out for the good of society and humanity, and to teach others about what we know and provide an educated opinion for the good of humanity. And then we had a presentation from the guest speaker, Dr. Nunez Rogerio. He is a conservational ecologist, and he talked about his career. And his work is obviously very different than the other scientists that we've read, which were mainly mathematicians and physicists, and I liked that. And it was cool to hear about his work and the process of how an ecologist solves a problem. And I sort of related this to when we talked about Polya's method. And we asked him, because this presentation followed the Einstein and Pauling discussions, about his activism and role in speaking to the public. And he told us that he believes that it's totally necessary to speak out as a scientist on issues, and that it's our job to inform and provide accurate information to others, which is pretty consistent with what we as a class were talking about. And then the remainder of the semester after that, we did presentations. We went on our own track. The first presentation, everyone picked a scientist. I chose Stephen Hawking. And the second presentation, we kind of had to pick like a topic, and I picked religion. So what did I get from this course? I'm a molecular neuroscience major with a minor in public health, and I want to be a physician. I think for anyone going into a scientific-based field, such as medicine, engineering, computer science, etc., it's important to understand the morals and the foundations and ideas that go into being a scientist or a student. And specifically Francis Su, I think his work made the biggest impact on me in this course, about how we all deserve grace and to not let our achievements define who we are. You know, as a student in a very competitive field, I need to remember that failure is inevitable and to not let it bring me down or discourage me. And then also with our discussion with a scientist's place in the public eye, activism, I think, is really important. In the medical field, there's still a lot of sexism, racism, healthcare inequalities, unfair medical school competition, you know, all of these inequalities going on, that I think it is a responsibility for me to educate myself on, to talk about, and to really input my opinion on for the betterment of the entire healthcare world, the medical world, my future patients, etc. And again, this also goes hand in hand with advocating for a patient. You know, taking what I've learned from this course about how to be a better scientist, how to be a better student, how to not let other people bring me down, and to remember that I have a duty to speak up about certain issues with the knowledge that I have. This includes advocating for a patient, which is exactly what you need to be able to have to be a better practitioner. And then in conclusion, I found this course to be very interesting. It sparked my interest in different scientists that I was previously unfamiliar with. And I'm very thankful that I now have a better understanding of the works of some really important scientists. And thank you for watching.